And kia ora everybody, what's up? It's Robett. Welcome to Robett Live. Another day, and then you've got two Kiwis which aren't even in New Zealand, and we're going to be talking to you today. Very hyped to have on the show, ladies and gentlemen. Bringing to you, Victor Vito. G'day, mate.
G'day, mate. How are we?
Mate, we're just talking to you. We're a couple minutes late because you got dad duties. Dad duties, 3 under 5.
It wasn't even dad duties. I wasn't even technically savvy enough to know that my wife didn't have Chrome on the laptop. That's how much I use this thing. But it's good to be here, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, bro. You too, man. We haven't probably met before, but I think we've got a few mutual friends, and we had a little online sort of zooey a while back. Whereabouts in the world are you right now?
Right now, I'm in France, in a town called La Rochelle. So I'm playing rugby out of here in the top 14. So yeah, we're on the west coast, just above Bordeaux, just above wine country. So yeah, I'm pretty well placed at the moment. But obviously with COVID and that, probably not too well placed.
What is it? Years ago in my snowboard world, I flew into Lyon and I went down to a smaller spot called Grenoble and then down to Les Deux Alpes. You're in wine country. That's probably quite far away from like Grenoble or any of that stuff, or is it?
Yeah, so Grenoble's further south and inland, whereas I'm further up the west coast. So 2 hours northwest of Bordeaux.
Yeah, nice.
So Paris is like northeast of Bordeaux, and we're kind of northwest, right on the coast. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. Been here for the last 4 years.
Damn. It's because how old are you now?
I am now 33. I sometimes forget, man, because the time just gone. Like, keep saying the same 31. I'm like, I'm 33 now.
So when you left New Zealand a couple of years ago for that? So what type of contract was it? Like, is it a 2+2, or how do they sort of structure it to do those Euro deals?
So I left in 2016, just after the Hurricanes won the Super Rugby comp. I left straight away. I had to get it in there, eh? So I left Australia in 2016, came here and had a 3-year deal. So had a 3-year deal, no +1s or anything, straight 3 years. And then 2 years into my contract, they wanted to extend that for another 2+1. And I managed to get a 3-year deal, which in my age now, I've done pretty well. So I've got another couple of years left.
So I always have to tell those that I know that are in sports I know nothing about. I played 1 day of rugby when I was 5. I don't actually even know what position you did. I don't know what any of the numbers mean. All I know is that when I meet good humans, I like to talk good shit. So I will not be asking you absolutely anything about rugby because I don't know shit. So how about
that suits
hopefully
me,
okay, maybe I'll say this way. Do you get sick of everyone relating you to what you do, not who you are?
Man, yeah, big time. I mean, it's probably more so now that I've got kids and a little bit older as well. I think the ego is drawn away a lot from what I used to do, especially being out of New Zealand. I think New Zealand's such a bubble, man, and the All Blacks and everything, and that's good and well. But, once I come here, I think more, especially because it's a small town and everyone knows rugby, but because they see me with my kids and it's a lot less serious, and it's it's not Paris, it's not Bordeaux. It's a small town that appreciates you probably more than just a rugby player. But I do still get it every now and then, and I can't hate on that.
Well, you always think of like net, the upside that you get from the talents that you've got to be able to do what you do. It's a very small price to pay for asking the same question time and time again. So for those who don't know, or I don't know, what position do you play in the old egg ball? What's your thing?
So I'm a number 8, which is like a loose forward, the guy that's not really doing much pushing at the back of the scrum. That thing that when they get together, big boys. So I'm at the back of that, or at the side of it, if I'm still fast enough to try to catch those backs. But I'm a loose forward. I've been there for a long time, but I'm slowly making my way into the middle because I'm getting a little bit older, a little bit slower. So
you play
a bit
smarter.
Like the regression.
So what years were you with the All Blacks?
I was with the All Blacks from 2010, my first year, to 2015. So I was lucky enough to be involved in the 2 World Cups that we won. So that was me.
Yeah, cool, man. We've obviously got a few mutual friends that have sort of gone in that world. I was going to maybe kick off with this. Do you feel like a fish out of water looking the way you do in a town that doesn't usually look the way you look?
Yeah, no, you're right, man. Yeah, I do, big time. Just because, Samoan boy here in little La Rochelle, it's pretty obvious that I'm a rugby player. That you can't. A lot of people come sometimes. They're like, "Oh, do you play rugby?" I'm like, "No, I play soccer." And they're like, oh, be quiet. I'm like, oh, so you already knew. And then, yeah, it's just to play around with it. But yeah, I'm a Samoan boy over here, and there's a few of us now. And the only thing is, they all play rugby. So
Yeah, got it.
um,
And the main bit for that, I'm guessing, is it? I think, was it about maybe who was the first? Was it Dan Carter who kind of did the first big deal to go to Europe to play after the All Blacks, or was there a few crew before him? Because it feels like they hit a ceiling with NZ, and then those global sort of deals really seemed to do it. Or Japan kind of seemed like it made a play to start with. How has it morphed, or the game changed in terms of the local talent actually going global? Like, how's that whole thing been?
I think the first guys to have done it were guys like Dan, but there was also Cole Heyman, who was a pretty solid All Black, a big prop, a big tall dude, big burly guy who was going to be an All Black, but he decided to say no, and he left to come over to Toulon, one of the massive clubs over here, just for big money. And from then on, man, it just kind of snowballed, and it was mainly the big stars that were coming over. But then, they paved the way for the rest of the guys, like I guess like myself, to just come and try and ply a trade and get those other little crumb contracts, I guess, on the side. So.
Yeah, but so on that, right? I know, when you're a young buck growing up in New Zealand, you see the All Blacks, you do that, and I always think about it, say, a bit different. You've got 3 kids under 5 now. Your perspectives start to change. You get a bit older. As a player that chooses to leave New Zealand to go global, is there a kind of a phases of, I did the New Zealand thing for my nation, for my country, for an All Black because I'm Kiwi, and then the next phase is I need to do this next bit for my whānau, for legacy, for longevity, and it's not necessarily the chase the money thing, but in certain ways there's very clear commercial outcomes that are happening to sort of make moves at stages in career. How was your headspace going from doing this for my country, was it doing it for the country, for doing it for whānau, or talk me through just the headspace of deciding to, Samoan boy rolling up to France, it's not like a normal thing. How was that?
I think I got to a really good place when I made my decision to leave. I'd signed just before I made the World Cup in 2015. So I didn't know whether I was going to be able to have a good swan song or whatever. But, I decided that I had my time in the All Blacks, and there was always going to be, and I wasn't a regular starter, so I wasn't really nailing my spot. So if you're a sub guy, you can always be replaced the next year because we just got that much talent. And that was, for me, I'm always going to push myself, but I was realistic too. So I was like, my family's my son was just born. I had a chance to go overseas when I got the offer, and I thought, why not? If I'm lucky enough to be in the World Cup, and I got one more season with the Canes, I can leave happy. And luckily, I had legends like Richard McCaw, and that I managed to be in the team when, they won the World Cup in 2015, and then in 2016, the Hurricanes won. Like, I had nothing left.
Tick the boxes, yeah.
Man, I was really complete, with my journey in New Zealand, and it helped me move on to forge a future, I guess, for not just my wife and my immediate family, but my mum, my dad, my cousins, and that. It was a no-brainer. But along with that, I think I'd already faced not going too far out, just for saying it's for everyone else. Like, it's I've kind of been able to set some good boundaries with my family, which made me a lot more comfortable to come out here and feel comfortable giving back the way I needed to.
What's the average contract for the level that you're playing overseas compared to New Zealand? Is it like 2x, 3x, 10x, depending on how much of a superstar you are? Like, is it that substantial of deals?
I think so. There's quite a few things, right, that make boys look at coming to France. I mean, generally 2x, I would say.
Okay.
Generally 2x, but then you're not like, if you're an All Black, things like not spending nights away from family. Like, we used to go away for like 2-3 weeks, sometimes in the year towards 5 weeks at a time. And when you got a young family, that just started for me, that journey. One night away for a game and come back. That's nothing compared to what we were doing. So all these sorts of things come into play, and then even the retirement packages. You finish up here, you've got this thing called chômage, where you're actively looking for a job, so to speak, but you can be getting paid up to $6,000 a month for friggin' just going around and trying to get interviews and whatnot. So it's €6,000 a month, which is pretty crazy,
It's a 6-figure salary for it. Yeah. I'm always intrigued with the headspace of how talent transitions for things greater than itself, or for those after, with how you need to navigate those, especially when there's that pull of not localism and love for the nation, but at the same time, you know, to your point, you know, when you're starting to see life a bit differently with the apex of where your talents are for, you know, you've kind of like just knocked shit out of the park. You're like, World Cup, boom, done. Hurricanes, boom, done. You know, it's just like, so it's good timing to do. What do you miss the most about the culture of rugby between New Zealand and France? Like, what's the vibe like in terms of like, you get on a plane, you roll over, oh, I'm here, boys. Like, how different is it?
I probably miss, you know, because I'm a Kiwi lad, you know, so the tribalism and how much it means to me from all the way when I was young, watching like a Wellington play Canterbury or Auckland or those sorts of big games. You know, that was massive for me, and every game was so cool to go away and beat someone on their own turf, you know. Whereas here, like when I first got here, there were big games, you know, for the local lads because they knew all the rivalries, all the histories. Whereas for me, I was just like, all right, I'm just going to a place like Grenoble or Brive I've never even really heard of, but yeah, okay. But what was more different was when we went away to those places, the French mentality at the time was win at home, but we can lose away, which really frustrated me quite a bit because, you know, come from New Zealand where we don't want to lose any time, let alone at home all the way.
Why is that?
Different. I think just because of the way the competition was structured, it was so long. Like we have, so it's top 14 teams in the top 14. You have 26 games in a round robin. We did the 13 games home and away. And then there's so that's 30 odd games, and then plus you add on the Champions Cup game. So you can be playing a lot of games. So the way the maths used to work, if you could win your home games and a few away games, you'd be in the top 6. Whereas now there's so many good teams. It doesn't work like that anymore. So I'm glad the mentality's changed because when I first got here, I found it really frustrating that guys will all of a sudden be injured on the Monday. You know, when they got an away game, they're like, "Oh, my hammy," and you're like, "Mate, you were bloody partying on Saturday night. You're all good."
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting, mindset of the way competitions are structured for that. I mean, it depends a lot as well. I mean, you look at the NBA with their sort of long seasons. Baseball does the same thing, the way they sort of, you know, load management and all the rest of it. When you first got there, in the first sort of crew from like New Zealand, Samoans and Tongans and Fijians or whatever start rolling over, was there like localized beef that it felt like those teams were cheating because they were bringing in the imports who were just stuffing dudes up? Was there like public beef because they thought you got like some were sort of stacking the deck?
You know, the thing is, maybe nationally there's that beef, but man, I don't keep up with enough French news or whatever in terms of rugby news to really feel it. But here locally, man, we don't feel it. We've been pretty welcome, to be fair. I think whoever the other players are that have come before us have left a pretty good legacy of putting their body on the line for the team, and so they've probably just, you know, allowed us to have that appreciation for the next guys that come in. You know, we've got a pretty good rep here in La Rochelle. Anyway, I'm not sure about other teams. I can't really speak to that. Yeah,
how's the conversation with wifey to be like, all right, you're going to bail from all your mates, pack up the bags, we're rolling. Like one hub's like, yay, we're going to be stacked. The other hub's like, what the fuck? I can't speak French.
Oh man, don't worry. Yeah, no, don't worry about that. Like we looked at all the things. You know, you look up France on Google and then all these wine countries and all these other things that you can do. That, you know, the Eiffel Tower, and yeah, man, we came here with rose-tinted glasses on for sure. And then I guess the reality of being here with a young family, and Amber was pregnant when we came over, so our baby actually came early, about 5-6 weeks early. So we were already like under the pump. Yeah, yep. Baby number 2, 5-6 weeks early. So we're under the pump. And then we had obviously now got our third, but like realizing we didn't know at the time how much help we would be missing in terms of our families and, you know, our mums and all that.
Network.
Yeah.
Especially Samoan mums.
Oh man, don't worry. My mum should almost get a French passport the amount of time she's been over.
I was going to say I was going to say she's stacking up those frequent flyers, man. Jeez.
Yeah, but no, well, that's the thing, man. It's been so tough with COVID. Like, you know, we were during the lockdowns in February, March sort of thing. We were just tracking along, just, you know, because it was summer. It was getting into summer here too. But I feel like now that we've gone back to rugby, the kids are back at school. It's almost like a bit of a COVID hangover. It's only now that we're feeling a bit like, damn, this has been a pretty big big change, not being able to see family and whatnot. So it's it's almost just starting to hit now. Not PTSD, but it's like, man, it's
No,
been
no,
tough.
no.
Just trying to keep in touch with everyone again.
Well, how did you get into like a new? So I'm in California. We've been on, I guess, technical lockdown since March. So we're kind of month 6 now. Still, like the city's unopened. A few things are sort of starting to, but the repetition of it's not mundaneness, but it feels like it's groundhog to the T of to the exact time of everything. Everyone's just in this kind of weird sort of dream bubble of copy paste. How's the and especially with 3 young guys, we're really fortunate. We've got like my wife's family's all within 10 minutes of each other. There's like 20 of them, so it's like shit's tight, which is awesome. But yeah, I imagine that just that forced space confinement. What was it like? Were you able to go outside? Like, how gnarly was the lockdown? Like, could you take the kids to the park? Could you go for walks? Could you was it bearable or was it pretty stuffed?
Yeah. Oh no, man. Look, I am pretty blessed, man. Like I've ended up in a place called Ilderay, which is just about 10 minutes out of La Rochelle. It's a little like a holiday island. It's almost like living in, I don't know, like Waiheke.
Oh, nice.
So during the lockdown, we were able to go for little walks. We were pretty blocked in terms of our like little villages, but because we've got like vineyards behind us, beaches right here, and we've got a pool at our place, mate. Lockdown for the kids was pure heaven, and that was part of the thing. Like we were loving life. I was at home on reduced pay, obviously, but that's all good. Like we're pretty safe. We're well looked after. And then obviously now coming back to what is, like you were saying, a kind of a new normal. It's been nice to get a bit more freedom, but it's almost like you want the whole pie. You don't want to go halfway. You want to get the whole thing back. So yeah, it's just adjusting. And the kids now going back to school and all, they're pretty strict here. They start at 3 years old, and my son's 5 and he's got his own desk and bringing home homework. So I'm like, damn, like. Going from running around.
They're doing it right, dude.
Yeah. Bro,
we play Bull Rush.
Exactly. So, yeah, just trying to manage that because he's like, I want to go to my cousins. I want to go home. I see they're having so much more fun at school. And I'm like, oh, don't worry. That's just, they're not having that much fun. It's fine, son.
Yeah, the age of your children having 3 under 5, they don't even really know. Like if it was 8, 10, 12, and they're literally not allowed to see their friends, blah, blah, they're very like, they understand what's happening. In some weird way, it's almost fortunate to have the younger bucks that will almost forget that. Remember that time? They will just know, hey, we hung out with mum and dad all day, every day.
Yeah,
for months.
Yeah, it's funny though. They're quite smart though. Like they know something's going on because obviously everyone's wearing masks now, and they know the word coronavirus because it's freaking everywhere. So it's just little things that I know that they can pick up, but luckily they can express their feelings a bit more around it, I guess.
So you'll be there another two more years?
2022 June. I'll be that's the end of my contract.
And then that will be. You feel that will be it? Hang up the. What's the average age of retirement for rugby? Is it kind of 35, 6? Was it younger?
I think it's just getting older and older. To be fair, guys are looking after their bodies better. I'd say from this level, maybe 32, 31. So I'm already doing pretty well. We're doing pretty well. My Jerome Carter is doing freaking. He's like 37, and he's just signed on for another year or two, maybe over in Toulouse. They're the French champions, so he's still trucking. Yeah, I think Martin Nonu's just come back to Toulon for injury joker, so he's still doing it.
It's great, man. How do you does your mindset shift at all from the headspace of what it was like being an All Black in 2015 for the goals there it does now in 2020 when you're not in New Zealand wearing the black jersey? How's your headspace as a player?
I think, like the goals that I had at that time obviously was just pushing my body to the absolute limit to try and, be the best, get a starting spot. And if I could start, then I could, hopefully help to win this game or the World Cup or whatever trophy we were playing for. And I think, and the environment was the fact that we were representing the All Blacks was so much, a team with so much history. It was just something that bound us so like awesomely, like both on the field and off the field. Like there was something bigger than us, and it's something that really gelled us. Whereas here, I've just come, obviously now I'm 2020, a few years on, I'm more worried about trying to create an amazing environment that guys can really trust to be able to perform the way they want to perform. In terms of, like, when I first got here, guys will be getting like, if they made one mistake, they'll be just getting absolutely rocketed, and they'll be getting dropped, and they won't even see them again, and they'll be transferred to another club, and that for me, I couldn't understand that. And now, we've had a few coaching changes. We've got a couple of Kiwi guys who are now coaching us. We've got John O'Gibbs and Ronan O'Gara. Ronan O'Gara is an Irish legend. And so they're trying to make a few changes that are more aligned with what I'm saying there. I think the world has changed, especially post-COVID. My goals now are just making sure that we've got an environment that fosters that trust, and just I feel like that's the only way that we can. That's our point of difference, because we haven't got the big bucks like some of the bigger clubs. But if we make a point of difference of actually making families feel welcome and players feeling like they can express themselves, I would never have even been thinking too much about that when I was a lot younger. Whereas now, that's where I'm at.
You're getting mature and woke, dog. You're going to be one of these rugby doggers just rolling around. No, I think it's good, because those things make a difference, especially when, if the mentality is, burn them and use them and flip them off. If they're shifting their whole lives and their families, it's like, this is like real life shit. Like, you can have feelings about it, but you need a safe environment to genuinely do that. Or if you dictate out of fear, you're not really going to have longevity for the greatness of a club or a sport, or for yourself, right? So I guess it's more, chess not checkers to think long game with how they set up structures to make the players and those involved feel more like part of it, right?
Yeah, like I think it's always been, rugby's always had, I don't know, like the clubs or the teams have always had the upper hand, and so to speak, and in terms of like, look, you either take this contract or no one else is going to take you, or they can start treating guys a little bit, like shit, really, and they get that players just got to hope they land on their 2 feet. Whereas now, I think, as opposed to always being thinking about stakeholders and fans and stadiums, and it's getting a little bit more employee driven. Sorry, in terms of they've got to look at. I guess it might be business as well, but they've got to start looking in at how their staff are feeling and how the players are feeling and what they're wanting to prioritize in the weeks. Whereas before it was just like, you go do this promo, you go do that. I don't care if it's at 7:30 for when you're meant to put your kids to have dinner or go to bed. It's now a lot more aware, I guess, of the challenges that employees go through. And I think COVID's obviously working everyone up a little bit more to that.
Well, I think when you play a sport that's super passionate, those that are within it need to have a bit of empathy for, the reality that these are just humans that do things, right? They're not flipping robots to just go and say, piss off, go do that next. It's not so cut and dry. And the reality is the culture of an organization that lasts, not the standard time, but it's relationship driven, not transactional driven. And I think that transition for many of those that are in it is good. Mate, it sounds like you're about to buy a team over there, mate. You're going to be a little part owner or something.
No, well, I'd love to, but I haven't made anywhere near enough money. I probably need to play till I'm 55 before I even do that. But man, I think creating that's where my new goals are. I think just creating a culture like you're talking about, and if anything, right now we're just talking about identity. And just trying to figure out what that is for us, because we've tried to mimic a lot of other great teams, but you can do that for so long. But at some point, you're going to have to find out what you're about and what's special to your region and that. So, that'll be a good challenge going forward, I think.
So, in, I guess, New Zealand folklore, the World Cup, so you guys won in 2015, right?
Yeah.
That was the big one? Yeah. So that year, that moment of all that momentum that was sort of happening and bubbling at the same time, how did, I guess, Richie as a leader, and you've got a bunch of alpha dogs in there with ego and money and Ra and nation and weight, how did he lead to navigate everyone's energy for that sustained period of time to get the results that you wanted? I'm just really intrigued of like how the approach strategically around leadership of men, when there's so many things across so many things.
Yeah.
What did you feel during that year, that season?
I probably felt there was, if I want to, I'll probably have to backtrack a little bit to 2011, which is when obviously we won the first one. And I think that was what allowed 2015 to happen, because the monkey was finally off the back. 2011 was real tense. We were at home. There was so much pressure to win. And if we didn't win that one, I think there was already a few guys that have booked plane tickets and like moving companies to move out. And those are the coaches I'm talking about. And that's how big it was, So for us to win that in 2015, it allowed us to have a little bit more of a wholesome perspective, I guess, on how we needed to really release the pressure gauge a lot of times. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure, but we're still human, We're not just robots, like you said, that roll out. And one of the things that the management and Richie and the other leaders ran really well was, we have like a club night on a Tuesday. So we ground ourselves to the clubs that we first came through. While we love the game, you first go out to play with your cousins, your mates, whatever. And we talk about those days, but we share a beer, so instead of cranking the pressure gauge up from pool games, quarters, semis, finals, and there's no outlet, every week, we'd get together, share a few bevvies, maybe a few more some guys are getting, but nothing ridiculous. But they just had an outlet there for the guys to realize that, you've got to let it out. Otherwise, it's going to catch you when the big moments come, which I think was managed really well. And then obviously we weren't sweating the small stuff. If guys are a little bit late or whatever, obviously just keep it a bit more human about how we how they interacted with it. But obviously if it becomes a habit, not that it ever did, but it would go to the higher ups, but it never needed to get to that because everyone had so much understanding of the bigger goal in mind.
Yeah, I feel that the way that everyone was in sync was special, and there are hundreds of millions of teams all over the world and millions of different sports and whatever. When they keep talking about New Zealand All Blacks being, one of the highest ring teams, blah, blah, blah. I always think, just the internal bits of leadership within it. How much weight did you feel was from the legacy of what the All Blacks meant to what the talent of the team was? What did it feel like you had additional superpowers for what came before you? Where did history and legacy build mentally for you in that season?
I think, like I said again, like mentally, we knew with the monkey being off our back that we could do it if we managed certain situations well. And I think like the leaders were awesome. Like we've got guys like Richie, obviously, who's an on-field maestro, and also just, in training, like everything he did, like gym sessions, fitness sessions, anything like that, like fitness, he'd be way ahead, gym, he'd just be full intensity all the time and just leading from the front, pulling us young bucks. And then they've got a guy like Kevin Mialamu, who was kind of like the sole leader of the team. So, like anytime you were like missing family or just needed to have a bit of a decompress, he'd be helping you to just put things into perspective, Then you got guys like Ma, who was like a bit of a life of the party kind of guy, just real jovial, like to make a few laughs, and he could keep things light. Then you had and then you had Desi, who obviously was just a big, this big legend and big, I guess a big brand on his own. But, he was just accessible all the time. He'd always be like taking guys to freaking just chill out or whatever. So it's, I think that the fact that those guys could carry so much mana, I guess, as players and on the field, but then also still be accessible, I think it just made it just and how hard they worked as well. And they proved it on the field. As a rugby player, you've always just got to prove your worth on the field. And those guys did it week in, week out. And so off the field, the guys just gelled like no one's business because of those guys leading us the way they did.
Yeah. What do you think is like the biggest thing the public never saw about the way Richie led that team of men?
I guess probably just the little conversations that he would have with guys. I guess because I was a loose forward, I managed to have a lot of those with him. But then also just the amount of analysis and work that he puts in behind closed doors. I mean, guys could imagine it, but I think one computer session sums him up. I was sort of sitting there. I came in for about half an hour, but he was already there for about half an hour before, I think. And he was just going through. There was no systematic way about how he was watching this certain game, and I was like just sort of checking. I was like trying to build up the courage to ask him what he was doing, and then I was like, "What are you looking for, bro?" And he was just like, "No, I'm just trying to find any instances where I'm walking in the game." and then straight away, obviously, I'm thinking about myself walking like right behind him while he's running, and I'm just like, so I think that just gives you a bit of an indication as to the drive and the passion and just the commitment to the game, not only to the work that he did for the team, but for himself as well. He was pretty tough on himself. And if you can remember 2015, a lot of guys were talking about how, oh, I think we lost to Australia, and a lot of the public, these guys were saying, oh, he's had it, Richie's had it, even Dan's no good anymore.
Washed up.
Yeah. Washed up. And then, man, they killed it. And the boys killed it in Auckland when we came back and won their Bledisloe, and then, the rest is history. So, yeah.
I got told a story from it was a pretty reliable source, and I was going to ask Ali about it, but I haven't asked him yet. I heard a story that when they would be away on tour, he'd get up in the middle, he'd have a room by himself, and then when everyone was sleeping, he'd get up by himself and go for a 10K run and then back to sleep, because then mentally he wanted to know in his head that while his competitors were sleeping, he was working harder than them. Was that true?
Honestly, I don't know. Ali was in a lot longer than I was, so maybe in those days. But the only thing I can say was true is he always got his own room. And actually, when I first made the All Blacks, he was my roommate, and I got to the hotel before him, and I didn't know, which bed to choose. So I just went downstairs and waited for his flight to arrive for about an hour, and then he said, "Oh mate, your bags are upstairs. Concierge must have dropped them off." And I was like, "Oh yeah, cheers, bro." But it was just like, that's.
Well, I heard the only one that knew was the head of security in Graham, and that was it. And it was a mental thing, yeah. And I was like, "Jeez." But I'll ask this: you watched The Last Dance?
Yeah.
Bro. Do you think Richie's headspace was similar to the mindset of winning or team, like him?
You mean, what was he like? Was he like Jordan, basically? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, but Jordan's obviously about himself win at all costs. Richie seemed like it was weight of the team and others, but the mindset of winning and the way they approached it, was there any crossovers between yourself and other teams that you saw within that Bulls team? Because arguably, if they were to do a Last Dance of Rugby, it'd probably be the 11 or the 15 team, right? But if it was Trent,
I think the way that Richie was definitely different to Michael in the way that he was very aware of how the team was feeling and how certain guys needed to get propped up either by having a talk with Kevy or whatever. He was always feeling for the vibe, and he was always very good at talking to the coach, probably something that maybe Michael did as well, talking to the coach if we needed a change or we needed to do something a little bit different, because I think his finger was very much on the pulse. So yeah, his awareness for the team, but then also for himself, like he'd put that responsibility on himself. He wouldn't try to delegate. He'd be trying to make sure that he drove that himself. And if he did delegate something, he'd always be checking in to make sure it was done in a certain way. So his awareness of the team, but then also his self-drive, obviously second to none.
So now you sit here, you've learned a bunch, you've transitioned over, you're now in France, living the flipping dream in many respects. You're safe in your way, you're close to wineries and a beach. I mean, life ain't too bad. When you fast forward 10 years and then kids grow up and they also watch games and bits and pieces, when you think about your own legacy within the sport, what type of dent do you think you've made or have hoped to have made within, maybe fast forward 20 years, you're a bit more washed up, a bit fatter, a bit balder. But when you think of legacy for you in the sport with like the dent that you've made, what do you think of?
What I think I would have made, or what I hope to have made?
You hope to have made.
Oh,
you're not done yet, mate. You got another 3 years in you.
No. That's a good question, man. I think any of the players that I would have played with or had a hand in, like there's some younger guys coming through now. And I still keep in touch with guys like Artie and that. I just would like to think that I made a difference and helped them see things a little bit more from a different perspective, I guess, in terms of how important rugby is, as opposed, like, when you compare it to like family and life and all the rest of it. Just keeping things in real perspective, because then that's the only way you can enjoy your rugby, I feel. Because when it's too much one way, everything's rugby, you actually don't do as well as you think. So yeah, that's what I hope I've left with the guys that have come across me. Do
you think if you were playing with your 20-year-old self now, you could talk to yourself about self-awareness and balance when you were 20, 22?
Only if it was me, obviously, I would listen to. But if it was, obviously, because I'd know he'd lived my life. But mate. If it was someone, I don't know. It's funny. Some things you just can't know until you get there. You know, like I've had a lot of people pass me some great messages when I was young, but it's funny. I think back now, it's like, you idiot. You know, like you should have listened. And that's why certain messages you try to pass over, like a 20-year-old who's just made the Hurricanes or whatever. You're like, mate, try to look after your money. Don't blow your first paycheck. But you know what? They're gonna, like, you know, and that's not a bad thing. They got to enjoy it. But it's it's a tough
But that's
one.
exactly that's what I was wondering. How much of it is mistakes that you should have known, to how much of it is naivety of youth when your headspace is around that, going for that goal which you've never get. And I'm always interested where, you know, they say, oh, what would you tell yourself and this and that. Well, you almost know at the time that you're doing dumb shit, but because you're there to do that thing, you are there to do that thing. Like nothing is in the flipping way. Like you're about to, just, roll out. So on that, how tough has it been to grow up and manage money, especially from a cultural perspective, when it's a lot different with how most Pacific families look after those and families around them. How have you navigated commerce with community and profit with people and family? Like, how have you navigated that world of money as a pro athlete?
Oh man, as I was growing up, I guess when it first came upon me, like with Super Rugby, that's probably when the first bunch of money started coming in, and that was back in 2009. And I think I wasn't really managing it well, like in terms of I would always be giving, but I was always angry about the giving. Because I was doing it with little amounts when I was younger, you're obviously enabling people like my mom and that, which, you know what, like at the time I was quite angry. I was like, man, I need to look after me first so that I can look after you. And to a certain degree, that is true. But if anything, I've just learned now more to set boundaries with what I give and make sure I just give what I know I'm comfortable giving, because I still want to be a community man. I still see myself as someone that has to look out for people who weren't as lucky to get what I got, and the opportunities that I've got. But in terms of that, I've just got to make sure I give what I can or what I feel comfortable giving.
How'd you learn? How'd you learn
that? Probably just a few of my own bad experiences. Like just knowing I was getting frustrated at someone that I knew loved me so much. In terms, my mum. Like my mum would never want to hurt me, and yet she was still asking me. So it's not like she's purposefully trying to hurt me. There's just obviously something that I believed in, and that she believed in, that I really. There was just something not quite marrying up. So as soon as I put on the boundaries aspect of it and just saying, look, I'm going to give this, you'd sort of teach people how to treat you in that respect, because whether it was $100 or $300, they were just happy for whatever, because back in the day you were giving them $100, but just because you're an All Black now, they're like, oh, maybe 500, and because of my own ego, it was my own ego, being like, yeah, I'm an All Black now, I've got to give 500 or I've got to give 1,000.
Flex on them,
yeah. But I think also having a kid really put a full stop in being like, man, you're your own man now. Make your own decisions, and your family will, your family's not your family if they're not going to understand that. So once I started getting my back up and getting a bit more confident about that, there was no problem, man. And I would never, I don't blame my mum or my dad for any of that stuff. That's how they've grown up. But it's up to us as the next generation, I guess, to set the boundaries as to how much or what that means anyway.
Well, it's tough too, because I mean, in pro sports, it's just the classic. Young buck grows up without millions in the bank, signs some deals, shit starts rolling, and then out of the flipping woodworks, it's cuzzies, it's bros, it's flipping thing. Like when you first started stacking, how was that tsunami of gimme? How heavy was that to come through? And simultaneously on the other side, how was the team that was around you, which is helping safeguard you or build that fortress? How was the tension between bunch of crew wanting to take shit, bunch of crew trying to save shit? How was that?
I think so I was lucky enough to have a team around me that I really knew quite well, and that knew my situation quite well, and I mean culturally quite well. So if I went and met someone and I was like, they were like, hi, I'm Dave, an accountant or whatever, and I would explain to them my situation, and he was like, man, you got to stop doing that for your mum. My mind, like I've stopped listening straight away, because there's no way I can just stop because my mum is more important than me to me
You
the
don't know
money.
culture. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
exactly,
that's my
it's
culture.
exactly it.
So, slowly but surely, I ended up finding people who were like, well, okay, that's great that you're doing this for your family. Maybe just think that if you give this and put aside this, we'll be able to do this later. And you're like, okay. And that's when I started being able to have those conversations with my mum. And they're like, okay, well, that makes sense then. And just people that were able to incorporate the two. I didn't think it was one or the other. And luckily, I was able to find people that could help me do that.
It's such a big difference between, and that's what I've said to, you say within entrepreneurship and Māoridom and culture, say within the entrepreneurial landscape, 95% of startups fail, and within the Māori world within business is like 5% maybe. So to find sort of successful young Māori career, you're like 1% of the 1% type scenario. But the weight of commerce or success or attention or notoriety or whatever that thing is, it's a different vibe when culture's around community and your people and your family and everything else around you. Yes, you're an accountant, but you're not an accountant for Pacifica, which has almost its own set of rules than it is just a regular P&L. So I think you're exactly right. Finding that understands the context of culture is insanely massive, because as soon as you can kind of crack that, it feels like you can get into a safer space financially, because the classic ones you just hear of is, they look after everyone except themselves. Dollars go out. They still keep trying to live the same flipping dream. And next thing you know, they may get injured. It happens in snowboarding all the time. Then the dollars dry up, and then all of a sudden they're sitting there like, shit, no, I got nothing. Oh, fuck, I got no retirement. Oh, I got no insurance. Oh, I got no yada, yada, yada. It's it's a massive risk, but I think that for me anyway, it feels that the tension that comes culturally from those that are professional athletes from Pacifica communities, there's a lot more untold, unspoken rules, which you can't even like fight,
Yeah, and I
It's
think
stuffed.
that's a massive part of because I think church, that's massive for us. God is absolutely at the center of everything we do, and and like the denominations that I am, like Catholic, I've got my dad's who's Catholic, and man, like they're happy with the 50 cents or the $5 that you put into the offering as it goes around. Whereas my mum's a whakasā side, which is like Samoan Presbyterian. Sometimes they're up there and they're reading out the amounts that people have given. And it's just and I always knew that it was bad. Like, and I was like, something in me is listening, going, man, these families have barely got cars or even houses. They're all renting and they're reading out giving $500 every Sunday. It's a little bit. And so obviously I started going away from the church, and I was like, man, I don't believe in that. That's bullshit. But before I could critique it, I needed to really understand it. So that's why I've started taking on my Samoan classes, not just the language, because I can speak Samoan, but just the history, just everything. And I'm starting to have a real understanding of how to attack it potentially if, what we talked about, when there's that conflict between saving something and giving something. I feel like I'm going to be able to one day, whatever role it is I take up in the future, be able to speak to it with a lot more understanding and with a lot more nous, I guess, to speak to not just the olds, but then obviously the younger ones as to how we can make it happen.
It just amplifies, culture and religion. They just 10x the strategy that you actually need to sort of be sustainable within it. So, good on you for having a crew around you that can get it, because a lot of people don't. I'm sure, when you were in an All Black, when you were, say, in that peak, in that circle, you're in the locker room, is it just classic banter of like, oh yeah, bro, you're gonna jump in on this? Let's start a bar. Oh yeah, mean bro, let's start a rap label. Like, what was some of how was the banter around money in those environments for those that potentially had some and then those that didn't have some?
So when I first started up, guys kind of kept their cards close to their chest. They don't really talk too much about investment. They kind of just sort of kept their own context to themselves. They weren't very open with, like, so if you had a good banker or something, I'll be like, oh man, I'm looking for a banker and I just need someone to help me out with this. Like, everyone will be like, oh, good luck, man. Like, but luckily as the game changed, a few guys started being a little bit more open with contracts and that kind of thing. And I 100% believe that that's the only way through, is just that transparency with all the players, letting each other know what each other's doing, even like contracts. I'm relatively open as well with some guys who want to know when they're negotiating what I'm on and how and what they should be looking at getting as in comparison to another guys in the similar position. Because that's the only way we keep guys like agents and that in the game is because we don't talk to each other. So I think the culture in rugby has definitely come a long way with guys being a lot more open with each other, and it's helping in a big way, helping in a massive way.
Yeah. It's ironic that the bubbles that players will put around themselves to protect the person doesn't realize that they're going against someone who owns the whole platform, who knows the flipping game, and by keeping the players against each other, it actually just helps the owners or helps the commercial interests of those way at the top. So there's plenty that don't get what they could get because they don't ask the question to those around them. And the fact that you're talking about that there, it's really interesting that on the field we are brothers. And then in finance, who are you?
Yeah, man, big time. And
That's
like
crazy.
I love nothing more than telling everyone, if there's, if a guy's asking or whatever, of course I'll let him know what I know, and if there's someone that I know that will know more about it, then connect with him, talk with him. And it's funny because I've had to sort of just watch as some guys have really taken to it. Like I've come to France and some other guys back home, man, they've taken these contacts and they're rolling, man. They're doing really, really well, and I'm just like little my ego inside is like, just relax. You're still worthy. You're all right.
It's the tension of that. Yeah. It's interesting. There's something in there, and I'm wondering, like, where is it because they've got talent for a profession, but then something that they don't know a lot about is their fear of acting like feeling like the dumb one for asking the dumb question that's not actually dumb, but they don't know who to ask or who to talk to. Do you think it's an ego thing? Do you think it's because there's something in that, right? Like there's something there.
I think it's a balance between especially guys that are a bit younger. It's a balance between the ego thing of you're this guy who's running around in the rugby screen. You get reported on, like you're put on a pedestal, especially these All Blacks. They put on a pedestal. I don't want to go to a banker and look like an idiot. Like I should be onto my shit, Like I don't look like a fool, because you've just ego basically, man.
Yeah.
Just ego. And then on the other side too, they don't really want to go up because they feel like everyone's trying to take advantage of them. So it's a couple of things that they got to break, because if you get really vulnerable to the guy and then he takes advantage of you, you don't want to look like a fool.
It's the trusted piece. Yeah, there's no safe space.
So that's why a lot of it is by reference. When you talk to, and that's why I don't mind telling guys if I know someone, and I'm hard on those guys too. Like if I tell my banker, look, I'm sending over Tawera or someone, make sure he wants to know about this. Look after him, please, because it's a people business. Where we are.
Yeah, I always find that so interesting, the dynamics of humans. They stay this, as much as they change, they stay the same with it. But I think you're right that the ego piece kind of clouds your judgment and probably makes it tougher to actually ask for the help that you need because you're going to feel like, I don't know this sort of thing. So what's your biggest concern in life right now? What are you most stressed about? You're in France, you got living next to a flipping vineyard, wifey's happy, got Grom's happy, can you speak French?
No,
what are you working on? What are you after?
No, to be honest, I think just the day-to-day really is not my biggest concern, but just making sure my children are well. I think my boy Carlos, he's comes back sometimes. It's just the little things, man. He comes back and he's just not happy because he doesn't speak the greatest French, hasn't quite picked it up, and he's getting a little bit bullied at school. And me as a dad, and I'm like, my ego goes, man, that's my son, bro. Don't touch my son. And then I'm like, all right, you know what? Just go tell your teacher, all the usual channels. And then what if that doesn't happen? I'm like, give him just tell him next time. Or I'm like wanting to tell him to freaking just belt him. But I think those everyday things. And then my boy Cruz, he's just wetting his bed a little bit. So we're trying to move him out of that. Mate, it's just dad stuff. That's my biggest concern. Rugby's rugby, man. I want to keep getting better. I've got goals in that too. But, once I walk out of that place, I'm literally just worrying about my mum and dad back home and my family right here. So, that's my biggest concern right now. And I guess rugby is going to finish in a couple of years. So, little things like stepping out of the box to speak to guys like yourself. You're one of the big reasons why I even updated my LinkedIn. In fact, you're the biggest reason.
Don't
No, like,
Oh, thanks, bro.
no, honestly, like, I've got like this. Oh, I want to change it too because I've like got this thing building me up, like double World Cup winner, like, and I look back at it now, I'm like, far out. That's too freaking. But anyway, it's yeah. So
It's
I'm
life
starting to
after.
look forward to the future.
Bro, ask me any time for any of that stuff. I didn't know that. I'm more than happy to help, bro. You know that.
Yeah,
It's all G.
all good,
I
man.
think that it's important when you can see what's going to happen. Get prepared for those days, and the leverage. I think of it as like long game leverage of those relationships that you've built through your entire career. When you finally then get to the spot where you wake up in 2025, 22, 23, whatever it is, and you don't need to put on the flipping sprigs and shit. And then it's like, well, who are you and what are you doing and what's your impact then and where do you go and who's in your circle and just that whole, like, your world will change. What will that look like and what doors could still be open and what opportunities can be there? So, you laugh about that on the LinkedIn thing. I was like, nah, bro, you've got leverage and you've been to places that no one is, like, I know 50 people in the world maybe have been to. That is like a huge asset to so many elsewhere, because what you'll find as well in the outer world of whatever is there's a headspace that I've seen in ex-SAS military, CEOs and elite athletes, which is the same. And I can't put my finger on it, but Monster's got, Ali's got it, Melody Robinson's got it, Anna Lawrence has got it. There's something in there, and that skill set of whatever it is mentally is one of the biggest assets in the real world for life after sport. Like, it's unreal, man. So you're positioning well for where you want to go, and I think it's super exciting because you can. Yes, it's day to day being a dad, but also the legacy that you've built is going to open up a lifetime, right? You're not playing a 10-year game, you're going for a Hyundai.
Doing, I guess, understanding what LinkedIn's more about, to be fair, because like I don't even know what content to share, whereas like Instagram, which I don't even have at the moment, or Facebook, you kind of just it's easy because it's family stuff, it's day-to-day stuff you share or your new kicks or whatever. But like LinkedIn, I feel like I'm not going to just share what business stuff am I going to talk about, like I'm just, but it's actually changing a bit in that regard. I guess there's more leadership stuff and more wholesome. Well, yeah, there's other stuff coming up there now. So I guess I'm too perfectionist at the moment. I probably should just put something up there, but I just don't know what.
No, get your way through. I'm more than happy to help. But I know you've got your thing you've got to boost to next. This has been cool, man. I'm sorry I don't know much about the old egg ball. I'm sorry I don't know. Haven't asked you if the rugby shit. Don't know, but you've obviously done. You know it really well. So well done.
Nah, man, appreciate that.
Oh no, it's awesome, brother. And yeah, it's cool seeing you get into a different spot in a different world. Like, shit, I bet when you were 20, you would not have thought in a decade's time you'd be hanging out in France. Jeez, that's crazy.
Nah, it's man, I'm very lucky, man. I'm obviously missing family and whatnot, especially through COVID, all these weird times. But man, I'm pretty blessed. I've been pretty lucky with the life I've had, and I talk like I'm bloody finished up. But no, I'm pretty grateful for everything that's happened, and I've ended up pretty well. So hopefully, things continue that way, and yeah, we'll see where the road takes us.
Bro, we'll catch up for one of those Tuesday club bevies sometime soon back in NZ. I think we'll probably more chance us meeting in New Zealand than or maybe if you be into your reds and stuff, getting all fancy with your French shit, we can smash a few wines or a whiskey, whatever you need. It's fine.
All good, man. Sounds good.
Love your work, brother. Thanks for the time, bro. I'll talk to you soon, eh?
Cheers, Robert, man. Thanks heaps.
Chachi. Later, bro.
See ya.
What a flipping good bastard. Victor Vito joining us all the way from France for today's little session, Robert Live. I will not lie, he's in France, which is, I believe now is 10 o'clock at night. We've just had a time zone change in New Zealand, and now it's 1 o'clock here in Pacific time. So it's been a little bit tricky to sort out the old calendars with, I've got 2 daughters under 3. He's got three kids under 5. We've got 3 different time zones, a bunch of stuff. And it was really cool just sort of hearing him out from a leadership side with all the stuff that he's been through, where he's at now in the journey. Good human. Really cool. And he's going to be up in his LinkedIn game. Happy with that. Hope you enjoyed the episode, team. This was episode 257 now. We did the counting of all the interviews I've done. This is now 257. So clearly I enjoy doing this, and I hope there is some value or insights or something from those that you've been watching or listening or whatever else as well. So have a good day, team, and we'll see you all soon. Adios. I'll play some outro music, and I'll just hit it with we'll just hit it with some claps. Adios, team.